I wanted to get a sense of how many of you have experienced this scenario. You get a hot prospect. Everything that they are telling you, all indications are they are super interested and ready to move forward. You put together the proposal with the anticipation that, yeah, this is pretty much a done deal. You make it all nice, you fire it off, send it to the customer, and then crickets. You hear nothing, right? Y'all hear, yeah. You follow up once, nothing. You follow up twice, 3 times, 10 times, nothing. It's like they just fell off the face of the earth. Now, why do prospects ghost in those situations? I'd love to get your idea. Gina?
I figured it's because they're afraid if they say something that you're going to just keep hounding them, kind of thing.
That if they say something, you are going to continue the conversation, engaging in high pressure attack in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. Good. Others?
They don't want to say no.
Yeah. It's hard for people to say no.
They don't want to say no because in their mind they're thinking $1, but in reality it's $100. And when you send the quote, they're like, I can't afford it, or it's not something we want to spend right now. They don't want to tell you no.
It's that sticker shock. Sean?
You didn't do a good job of selling the value and
Yeah.
speaking to the pain point.
Yeah, you've got this price here, but does the actual product or service in their mind exceed, that value exceed what their investment's going to be? So, yes, sir.
One of the things is a lot of times, especially, I don't know, it may be the last 10 years or so, but a lot of people are not really fully transparent. So there's always something that they hold in their bag, but by the time they get to the end of the process, they realize that's gonna be the one thing that's gonna stump it. And because of that, they don't have that courage to say, well, this is why I have that problem, to solve that last little part, so that then they just ghost you at that moment. So even as hard as you can try sometimes, that you want to discover everything that's there,
Yeah.
There's always something that they might be ashamed of that they don't share, that allows you not to get over that last final lap.
100%. Yeah.
I think it's also clarity from the salesperson, because sometimes I'm guilty of not being clear enough, and maybe when I phrase it differently, I get a buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this concept called ambiguity effect, so it's the opposite of clarity. And when things are unclear, when it's ambiguous, that's when buyers tend to procrastinate. They don't quite understand, they don't know what the exact next step is, and then as a result, they hold off. So that's good. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's that happy balance of relationship, right? So either you really have a great relationship with them, and they really don't want to say no.
Yep.
They don't want, they don't want to ruin the relationship, or you don't have a good enough relationship to where they trust you enough to kind of express what their concerns are, right?
Yep.
So it's that finding that sweet spot in that relationship part to where everything kind of is pretty smooth.
Yeah, that goes alongside, and what was your name again, sir?
Stefan.
It goes alongside what Stefan was saying, is sometimes they don't want to, there's something holding them back from being forthcoming with information that could actually help them because it's helping you understand. Yeah, 100%. Ayrton.
I always, in the times that I've had the ghosting happen, I didn't set the expectation, and I didn't allow them to set the expectation to me. So before we left the table, it's like, how do you want to be communicated? This is the timeline. Do we agree on this timeline?
There you go.
And then moving forward.
Yeah.
If I left it, if it was ambiguous or what you were saying, then it was, I was happy enough to get what I thought was a sale in my head.
Yeah.
So I told myself lies about this person, like a bad relationship, right? And I got the, right?
Yeah. That, so much of what you guys have brought up as the reason why the ghost, I mean, I don't even need to speak any further because you just go, okay, let's do the opposite. Let's be more clear. Let's, you're talking about that sticker shock. Well, let's get that number out sooner, see where that stands. Let's have that relationship and trust and so forth. So there's a lot there. But what I've done today is I've identified 4 techniques that I have lived by when I was a sales rep, that I live by at systematic selling, and that what I teach and instill in all my clients. It's a way to simplify it so that you can understand how that process works. And the idea here is, how can we close more of these opportunities and get ghosted less? In an ideal scenario, you should be able to tee up that relationship that by the time it comes to the close, the customer feels comfortable telling you no, if it is a no, and telling you yes, they're ready to move forward when the timing is right. So what I'm going to do today, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these things because I want to give as much time for you all to talk about specific situations that have been on your mind. So I'm going to go over these 4, and then we'll dive into Q&A. So the first one is the budget pre-sale. What that is during discovery, it's where you have that budget conversation. But it's not, hey, what's your budget for this project? Because a lot of times they'll go, gee, I don't know, what's the price, right? You know, so how do you get them to be honest with you? So one of the things that you do is you go, for a project like this, the investment is typically between $5,000 to $7,000. Does this fit in line with what you were expecting to invest in this project? You'll get 1 of 2 responses. Yeah, that's about right. Or you'll get, well, your competitor, offered me at $4,000. Now you have a conversation, right? This is during discovery. You haven't even given your true number yet. So now you have an opportunity to get to why it is at $4,000. And you go, wow, we're not the lowest price provider, but we're typically not $1,000 to $2,000 higher. Usually when I see that, it's because there's discrepancy or difference in scope. Would it be okay for me to review the scope? You can block out the numbers. I don't need the specifics there. But to review the scope to ensure that we're quoting you apples to apples. And now you have a scope conversation. You're not negotiating price, you're negotiating scope. So the budget pre-sale, as Sabrina was talking about that sticker shock, they're thinking it was this, and you come up here, you've nipped that in the bud. Now, it could very well be they are just not aligned with you. They're not a qualified prospect because their budget doesn't fit what your service is, but you at least have that conversation. And majority of the time, the moment that they proceed to the next step, you've tremendously increased your odds of closing that deal. Secondly is the scope review call. In my business, we call this the game plan call. What I use it for, and it's based on this philosophy, the written proposal should be the formalization of what you've agreed upon verbally. So the proposal shouldn't be the first time they see your full scope and your full, I use investment, not price. So that should not be the first time they see it. So what I use the scope review call for is during discovery, if they are aligned, you go, great, here's the next step. We will schedule, in my business, a game plan meeting or a scope review meeting, and we will go over to the scope to ensure that we've covered everything that is important to you. And at that time, you will have the full investment amount. If we need to make adjustments, we can make adjustments during that conversation so that you have a true number upon which to make a solid business decision. That's the scope review call. It is giving you the opportunity to do a live close before you submit the proposal. 3, the clear close. as Tatiana talked about, clarity. Now, I was guilty of this early in my career, but I'm curious if any of you have ever been guilty of this. You send the proposal, and in your message, in your proposal, you go, attached is the proposal or estimate, depending on the business you're in. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Okay.
Mine a lot.
Okay, good. Well, here's what I would recommend doing. So you send the proposal. In my business, what I do is I provide clear next steps, right? My proposal, I don't even call it proposal in the email. It is game plan recap, because we had a game plan, and now I'm recapping all the main points that we talked about with the full investment. And what that does is it provides a clear next step. So in this instance, attached is proposal. The next step is, and then you outline that next step. That is a close. Next step is I will send you the invoice for the initial session, and then the moment that that invoice is paid, that's when the engagement begins based on the scope that we've arranged, right? Or you put, if the scope and the numbers look good to you, send a quick reply with approved, or whatever your process is, send the executed agreement. Just provide the exact next step. And then you provide an out. You say, if anything here does not match what we talked about, let me know and we'll make adjustments accordingly. Or as I do in my game plan recap, I'll say, here's the recap of our conversation from today. Let me know if I missed or misunderstood anything. Always provide that sort of way out in case there's something there that you missed and it wasn't quite right. And then the fourth, first off, before we do that, on the clear close, when you're doing the scope review call, have closing questions that are non-pressure. Like, give you an example, go through the scope review call. How would you like to proceed? Just put it on them. I've already outlined what those next steps are. How would you like to proceed? Or if it's a situation like I work with commercial contractors that work with building owners and property managers, right? So they are not the final decision maker. So when you have that situation, you're doing a scope review call, you can't get a firm commitment from them, right? So one of the things I would ask is, do you anticipate the building owner having any issues with this scope and investment for this project? So either way, you're asking a clear close question. You're not timid, you're just simply moving them along in the process. And that builds trust. And then the fourth method is what I call the lap method. This is when you are dealing with objections. And objections are awesome. Some people call it overcoming objections. I call it clarifying objections. Because overcoming means this is something I got to push through and overcome. It becomes an adversarial dynamic with that customer. Clarifying is collaborative. I'm going to work alongside you and see if there is a way we can make this work. You said your name's Stefan?
Yes.
As you were talking about in your example of sometimes they don't want to say certain things. They're not ready to reveal it. The LAP method can help bring that out. It's hard to see up here, but you first label, that's the L, label what they're feeling. It sounds like, or it seems like, and I'll give you an example here in a minute. A is ask. Ask questions until you isolate what the true objection is, and I'll show you in the example. And then P is propose. Propose the next step. Would you find it helpful? Would it make sense would you find any value if we tried this? So let's use an example here. No matter how good you are in your sales process, you will inevitably come across situations where they're super interested, but then they'll have a pause, right? I need to think about it. So in this case, label. Sounds like you're not 100% sure this is the best step right now. So how many of you have read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss? In that book, this is the idea of tactical empathy, where you are labeling what they're feeling in that moment to get them to go, yeah, that's right, that's what I'm feeling. Then ask until you isolate. Can I ask if there's something specific you're unsure about? The investment, timing, or something else? And in this case, the prospect says it's mainly the investment, not sure if it's in the budget. Now here's where you continue asking the question. You don't run with that to address that statement about the investment. You go, besides that, anything else giving you pause? And in this example, no, the solution makes sense. Just need to figure out if we can afford it. So you have simplified exactly where that point is. And you've gotten to that point where he goes, yeah, I'm just not sure if we can afford it right now. Well, now you have a problem that has a potential solution. Would you be open if we looked for ways that we can spread that investment over time? Would that be of any interest to you? In this case, said, yeah, that could work. I'd like to see what those options are. And then you go into that next step. So as Ayrton was saying earlier about you finish up the meeting, but you don't set those next steps, that's where people ghost you. You always think of this meeting, next meeting. Don't leave that meeting without scheduling the next step in your process. So you hear, the next step would be to schedule a Zoom to review some tailored plans together to ensure they fit your budget and address your needs. Would that work for you? And so, again, no pressure. In a lot of ways, you are an intelligence agent, right? You're drawing out information to determine how you can best serve them. And the reason why this is important as we close out, sales is alignment. It's not using pressure. It's not pushing people into something. And so our credo of how we define sales at Systematic and what we instill into our clients is sales is not about convincing people to buy. It's about finding or creating alignment between the customer's problem and your solution. And when you focus only on the prospects who align with what you're selling, you cannot help but crush your close rate. Thank you all very much. We are now open for Q&A. How much time do we have, Tatiana? We've got, what, 15 minutes?
15, 20 minutes.
Awesome.
I know
Gina.
what I find with ours is it's a different kind of business.
Yep.
But a lot of times they'll say, well, when we go over the pricing of what we do, then they'll say, oh, well, so-and-so can get me for less than that. And most of the time my response is, well, that's perfect. If you can get that price, by all means, you go for that. Is it okay if I check back with you in a few weeks to see how things are going?
That's awesome. That's a way of doing it. It's no pressure. You have shown that you are not just after them for their money. You want to serve them, and you provide them an open door. A lot of times when people do that and they buy from someone else, they will feel too embarrassed to come back to you. So even when you have situations where they don't buy from you initially, one of my clients has what he calls the hang-around theory, which he's a commercial HVAC rep. And even after they went with somebody else, I'm just available here in case you need us. And inevitably, the incumbent will create an opportunity for you to step in. And that's a perfect approach, Gina. Stefan.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. One of the things that you did is the fact that we know in general, a lot of times when you're talking to a client, they don't understand the product knowledge that you know.
Yep.
And you talked about diffusing or taking away the aggression.
Yep.
But what you've done in your steps is you didn't take away the confidence that you have.
Yes.
So your tone setting is always confident. As after the fact that you discover what you need to discover, you are always letting the customer know that I'm trying to find out what you need because I'm the right person for what you need. But I'm still not being aggressive. But my confidence is always closing after that first point.
Yes.
So that tone setting allows them to relax and always going back in and probing and setting those, the scheduling and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of unwritten language that comes into that, even though we're in a technology world where we're texting and we're doing all this other stuff, but that tone setting is gonna create a thing where this person is the right person for that.
Yeah, it's of course not in my slides, but confidence is a vibe that attracts people to you and enables them to entrust their business to you. So you are spot on. Having that, see, what a lot of people don't understand that engage in high pressure tactics or are aggressive, they think in their head, I'm showing confidence. They are really signaling an insecurity and desperation. They've got what we call commission breath, right? It's like, man, this. And some people do it because it works on occasion. Like some people will fall for it, right? But if you're wired like most of us, like I get a visceral reaction. The moment somebody does that, I get up, I'm done here. And so that's why I'm super sensitive to make sure I don't do that and that my clients don't do that, because it is a horrible experience for people. So confidence is just, it does, and it's giving them space to come along with you instead of saying, pull. Tatiana.
I have a question. So I tend to give my clients enough time to think about the product and not pressure them and not,
Yep.
but I think I give them too much time.
Okay.
How much time? Because I don't want to feel like, I don't like to be pressured into anything. So I try to think of the client and the customer, give them enough information. So, and then I said, well, think about it, let me know. My opportunity, of course, is to set up the follow-up time, but how much time should I be given?
Okay, great question. And this is one of the things you do. You know how you do that budget pre-sale during discovery? You do the time frame during discovery. And the way to pose it where it doesn't come across as pushy, you go, assuming, let's say in banking terms, assuming the amount and the terms look good to you, when would you be looking to move forward on this? When would you be looking to make a final decision on this? And they'll tell you, we're looking at a couple other options. It may be in about 2 weeks. Awesome. Would you be opposed to us just scheduling a touch base call to see where that stands. And if you choose someone else, no worries at all. We'd be happy for you. But if you have further questions and like to move forward with us, be happy to walk you through that process as well.
Thank you.
You bet. Lauren.
So technology can be very daunting to
Yes.
people. They don't understand it, and even as much as you explain it to them, people often think that choosing a provider, switching a provider involves them contributing a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so then in their minds, they think, I don't want to do this anymore. This involves a lot of work in my time, and I don't have that time.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of advise in switching that mindset to they're not putting in all the work?
At what point in the sales process are you uncovering that concern?
When we start discussing a potential transition into
Okay.
us as a new provider,
Yep.
then they're like, well, that involves work.
Any chance that you can get, inoculate a client on the key common objections. So bring them up. At that time you say, now, a lot of folks, when they first hear this, think this is going to be a ton of work. And it will be daunting, it will take a lot of your time. And so for a lot of folks, it's like, I don't want anything to do with that. And that is a common perception that we come across initially. But here's what our process looks like. And it's designed to make that as smooth as possible. The investment you're making in us is an investment to free up your time, to focus on doing what you do best in the business. So you don't have these headaches that are coming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so any of your businesses, think about those common objections. We are wired to not want to talk about bad news or weaknesses. I'm the exact opposite. One of the best trust building things you can do is be the one to bring up these concerns so that they go, okay, yeah, I was feeling that, so there's some alignment here. And then talking about how you solve them. Yes, Steve.
It's going to tie in with some of the things you just said, but is it skill to know when you're talking to someone and you're asking for those small commitments and they're giving it to you, but you see their body language says something else? Right? Because like they may say this, but then they're going to pivot afterwards, and you kind of caught it, but you didn't know how to adjust to kind of like address it and bring it out.
Use the LAP method. You said, you're giving all the verbal indications that this looks good to you, but I'm sensing something in your body language that might be saying something different. Am I misreading you, or do you have some hesitation there?
So address it.
Address it. It takes guts to do that, guys. Your initial thing is you will notice it, you will feel it, but you don't want to address it. It's like, oh, I don't want to spook the customer. You keep going. But I promise you, it's so much better to do it earlier. And just train yourself to listen to that and know that you're not being a jerk. Because notice how I posed that question, I gave myself a way out. Am I completely off on that? And it could, yeah, actually, maybe, but no, we're good. All right, perfect, we proceed. But at least you addressed it. Yes?
Not to flip the switch to the beginning, but
Yeah.
how do you re-engage a prospect that maybe ghosted you, or you had a previous rep that handled it and you're trying to re-engage them to get them back on?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways of doing it. There's a direct way and then an indirect way. So the direct way, a lot of my B2B clients, they'll do what's called a quarterly touch base, meaning as you're approaching the quarter, say, as we're planning out our next quarter, do you anticipate needing any quotes, estimates, budgets from us or other ways to support you over the next quarter? When I was selling trucks, I got so many quotes and sales from just doing those quarterly follow-ups. So Mason, something to add to your repertoire there at Carl Black. That's your direct way, okay? The indirect way is LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is not being direct necessarily, but you're continually engaging with people on LinkedIn. One of the things that you can, I can't show you on here because I'm not online right now, but I'll walk you through it. On LinkedIn, what you can do is go on the profile page of that person, you scroll down just a little bit and you'll see all posts. Click on that. That gives you all the posts that they've done. Copy the link up top, put it in your spreadsheet, CRM or whatnot. And that way, when you click on it, it doesn't keep showing that you're clicking on their profile, but it allows you to see their content. And then you can be intentional. Like I have a certain number of folks that each week, these are the folks that I'm going to be checking in. And so when I look at that I'm going to be commenting or engaging with folks, it's going to be off of that. So it saves you a ton of time and allows you to work that, because the beauty of LinkedIn is it gives you free touches without being annoying. And every time you engage on someone's posts, you are raising their status. So you're giving them something which triggers that sense of reciprocity. So those are two ways, direct, indirect. You bet.
I noticed one trend that you mentioned, Sean, and I think it's important. Maybe Stefan touched it when you talk about language, but terminology is so important when you're speaking. Like you said, instead of how much is it going to cost, what your investment is.
Yep.
And there was another line you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think terminology is so important when you're doing presentations. So make sure you put your foot in your mouth when you are talking.
100%. And we'll close out on Julio here. To tie that in a bow, I have this phrase of never awaken the lizard brain. Sometimes our language can create a sense of fear. And so examine your language, and you'll learn it over time. Correct. Your tone, the words you use, that's why I use investment, not cost. Other things, does this fit in line with what you were intending or expecting to invest in this? So never awaken the lizard brain. If you come away with anything from today, that is it. Tatiana, thank you so much.
Thank you.